Okay, last week in class we were looking at some of the physics involved in our martial arts training. We were looking at how if we can maximize the force that's behind our effective mass and cause it to accelerate at a large rate so that we have a maximum, a large impact velocity, we can maximize our momentum, we therefore maximize our impact. And there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot in terms of the physics that goes on in that. But today what I want to look at is how there's certain patterns or certain training that we can practice so that we can increase the muscle engagement that's involved in delivering some of our movements. And today we're going to look at a pattern that's a little unique. In White Crane, this is called sinking. It's sinking power. There's different ways that we manifest power with our White Crane patterns. I'm going to look at one that is actually involved in the beginning of our White Crane forms. When we finish our bow, or part of the bow, we draw back, and what do? We sink down. But that sinking is not just moving the arms. You should be engaging the shoulders. Okay, there's a great deal of muscle involvement just in this pulling down action that can help you to maximize power when you're performing movements that involve a downward or sinking energy. So to learn this better, we're going to start, instead of just starting with this short range movement that's at the beginning of our White Crane forms, we're going to start with a larger scale movement because, as you guys know, very often it's easier to learn a movement if first you learn it at a larger scale, develop the movement, learn how to engage the muscles, and then in time you can shrink the movement down, and you'll very likely, after lots of practice, be able to get just as much power out of a small scale movement as you were at the beginning of your training out of the larger scale movement. So here's the large scale movement I want you to work on. And we're just going to do it slow motion. We're just training this movement right now. Okay, it's up and then down. So bring the shoulders up and then pull down from that position. Notice I'm not doing this. I'm not bending the elbows. I'm not doing this sort of method of delivering power. Now, after we learn this movement, there's going to be many instances where the elbow, where extension of the arm is going to be involved in delivering power. What we're trying to do right now is isolate this movement so that we can learn to start incorporating a little bit different muscle involvement than we might already be used to. Okay, it's not as common. So again, everybody bring the shoulders up and pull down. So it's up and you pull down. And if you try this, you should be feeling like a reverberation through your body. You can feel the impact with the ground. And we're not even dropping our height. That's another way to add power. I'm just trying to isolate this movement right now. So it's up with the shoulders and then pull down. Up with the shoulders and down. Okay? And then when you're feeling pretty good about that, you can try just the opening of the sequence again and see if you can start getting a little more power out of that smaller range movement. Okay, so I'm going to let you work on that, and then we might discuss, or we will discuss, a couple of different applications that you can work on as well. So practice that. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. We have the shoulder involvement. There's some different exercises we use to train this. I'm just giving you a couple basic ideas today to get you started. But it's this mechanism. Now, in a combative situation, we're not going to raise our shoulders up to drop that power down. That's where this pattern, this sinking energy, comes into play. But let me have Moses out here, and I want to show you guys one application that you can work on. And first, I'm going to start with a punch. Now, this initial, what I want to demonstrate is not using the shoulder drop. I just want to relate what we're going to discuss to this particular strategy. And that would be, if he's throwing a roundhouse punch, if I see that punch coming, throw the punch again, I might check his shoulder and strike before he can even get any energy into that punch. To beat action, we what? We meet action. Now this strategy does not work, let's do this slow, does not work if this punch is too far around. If now I try checking, there's different ways that you can check off his attack. Okay? If I try checking here, now it's going to wrap around, he could catch me. Okay? So you have to understand the appropriate time to use this strategy. But my purpose of re-emphasizing something you guys are familiar with is to point out that that same strategy, throw the punch one more time. He's throwing that punch. A lot of times we could check the shoulder. This could be a chop into the shoulder. It also could be, I could be clawing using like an eagle technique or a claw into the biceps to check off his punch. Well, this same strategy could be used if he's getting ready to do a knee or a kick. And now, if he's coming in, if we're in close quarters, he's coming in, okay? I might be checking that off and striking simultaneously. But if let's go slow motion. If I'm just meeting his action with just the extension of my arm, that's not going to be nearly as powerful as if you learn how to engage your whole body behind that movement. So that's where the shoulder mechanism comes into play. And of course, as he's coming up with his strike, I'm also dropping my height. There's other methods of manifesting power that are involved, okay? So any sort of downward palm movements, downward palm blocks, pressing hand movements that you need to maximize power in, those would work beautifully, taking this pattern, adapting them into it. You can also adapt this into any downward X blocks that you guys have in your techniques or your forms. But I will point out, and you might have already been introduced to this other mechanism, there is another pattern that we use when we're performing the X block. It's not just that downward energy, although that sinking power is a part of our X block. Okay, so sometimes you have compound actions that you're performing to maximize power. All right, so I'm going to let you guys work on that and partner up and practice. See if you guys can come up with some different applications for the palm, the downward palm block, the X block, and then we'll move on to our next lesson. Okay?